Hey y'all, it's Stacy with 2 E's, Levine like Adam, and welcome to my birth story video. Before we get any further, make sure you hit like and subscribe to this YouTube channel.
What you mean now, what you mean? I can never slack a backup on my dream. All these rings got me feeling like I can. Bustin' moves, had to hit them with the screens.
Okay, so I'm gonna actually do more than just tell you about the birth of my daughter. We're gonna take it all the way back to the beginning. I mean, even before conception. So, all the way back in 2017, my husband and I started seriously talking about starting a family. I had graduated nursing school, I had passed my boards, and I got my nursing license. And so, even though I wasn't working at the time, we knew, that it was going to be inevitable that I would find a job, I would find employment. So that year was also the year that we decided we were moving into a bigger space. We were just believing and trusting God that He was going to answer our prayers. We were praying daily. And so we just knew eventually it was going to happen. So we started... basically, I don't want to say trying, but trying, in September of 2017. We moved into our apartment where we are now in February of 2018, and I still had not conceived at that point. I was on orientation at Cooper. I had got hired there in January, and so orientation's about 10 to 12 weeks on the unit that I work on. So I finished my orientation around April, end of March, beginning of April. And so all this time we had spent trying, it got discouraging, it got hard, it got emotionally stressful, emotionally draining. And then one day I woke up, I decided to just take a test and see. At the time, my husband was working, I'm just going to call him Rudy. So at the time, Rudy was working day shift. He would have to leave home at like 6 o'clock in the morning in order to get to work on time. So I woke up one morning behind him, and when he left, I took a test. And I didn't think anything of it. I was like, we're trying. My period's a little bit late, so let's just see what happens. So I took a test. I put it down on the counter. I finished using the potty. And then I washed my hands, and I just knew it was going to be negative. But when I flipped the test over, there were definitely 2 lines. It was just that one line was very faint. And I was a little bit confused. I know that it's very hard actually to get a false positive pregnancy test. But the fact that it was so light, I was just I wonder. So I actually sent a text message to 2 of my friends with a picture of the pregnancy test. What does this mean? Does it mean that I'm pregnant? It's very light pink, So one of my friends actually instructed me to go to the dollar store that day and buy some more tests and just take a bunch of dollar store pregnancy tests. So that's exactly what I did. Around 9 o'clock, I left the house. I went to the dollar store. I bought some pregnancy tests, and I came home and I took about 2 more pregnancy tests, and they were both also positive. I sent a picture to her, and she just was like, "Oh my God, you're pregnant." And it wasn't until I got that text message that it actually hit me that they were all positive, and that meant 99% that I was pregnant. So I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. I like immediately ran into this room, which was empty at the time, and just put on worship music and just started praising. Like, I was so ecstatic. I was just so thankful that God answered our prayers. So then I had to wait to tell my husband, to tell Rudy when he got home from work. And that was like the longest day of my life. I was like, oh my gosh, where is 2:30? Because at the time he was clocking out at 2:30 and he would get home around 3 o'clock. I already knew exactly how I was going to tell him. And so I texted him while he was at work and I was like, listen, when you get home, we need to go to ShopRite. So I was like, when you get home, we need to go ShopRite. We need to get some, cleaning stuff. I need some groceries, so we need to go. So he was like, okay, whatever. So then I did everything to try to pass the time. I took a nap. I cleaned up a little bit. I took a long shower. I just wanted the time to go by so fast, and it was taking so long. So then finally he gets home, and finally we were able to head to ShopRite. And here's how I told him that we were having a baby.
Who's that for?
Yes.
I want that.
I'm that serious. We need them.
No, we don't. No, we don't.
I'm pregnant.
No, you're not. That's not how you can tell me.
So yeah, that was my plan, to take him to ShopRite, throw some diapers in the car, and see what he would say. And so, disclaimer, he actually thought that I was saying that or I don't know, when he said I don't want these, he didn't even think about me buying Pampers because I was pregnant. He literally thought that I was just buying Pampers either for someone else or just because. So, and I also think he was very nervous and caught off guard. After that, I didn't want to keep it a secret. We went to my parents' house and we told my parents. We basically told them by putting a bunch of name tags in a box. And they had different names that you could call grandparents, Papa and Mama and Grandpa and Grandma and, different names like that. And on the top of the box it said, choose wisely. My mom got it right away. It took my dad a little bit to get it, but I also feel like he also was kind of just okay, this is my daughter. And I know, I'm a grown woman, married. But I do think that sometimes it's a little bit shocking for dads when their baby girl is also going to be a mom now and have a baby of their own. So, and then we headed over to my in-laws and we told them and they were extremely excited. And so I just went into, this whole experience with, excitement and just wanting to tell everyone. And so at that point, we slowly started to tell some of our friends, our closest friends. We clued them into what was happening. It was just so special for us because we had been trying for months. So at that time, I didn't really know how early on I was. I had a feeling that I was pretty early. But it wasn't until coming back from Las Vegas, which that Vegas trip is a whole nother story for a whole nother day. That was crazy. But so we got back from Las Vegas and we had our first ultrasound. And we realized, or were told at that point, that we were 6 weeks at that ultrasound, which means that I actually got that positive pregnancy test when I was 3 weeks pregnant, which is so crazy. But yeah, so we were 6 weeks, and we were just so excited, and we were like, you know, we can't really hold it that much longer, but I didn't really want to announce until I had like a due date and everything, because I wanted to make like a cute announcement video and like post and everything, obviously. So sometime in June, the doctor called me with my due date and told me that my due date was going to be January 11th, 2019, which was so crazy to me because January 11th is my birthday. So I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm having a baby. My first child is going to be born, you know, close to, if not on my birthday. So I was like, wow, this is like, God answered my prayer, and it's also like the perfect birthday gift. So just take a look at some of the pictures throughout our pregnancy.
Locked up on the red one, keep it 1 million, yeah, I'm only about you, yeah, you. Locked up on the red one, we just chillin', put you on the dick and stealin', 1 million, only about I looked up on the real one. I looked up and found real love. You been in it, you deserve to win it. I be talking what I'm feeling. I was tripping on the rock. I was about to let it go. I got perspective now, I might have to let it know. Girl, you out until it's sweat. And catch a play, you not an option. No discussion, change the charger. And you the first franchise, you the whole franchise at the top. Baby, I know that you know that I know you the truth.
So my pregnancy had been pretty, you know, smooth sailing. I had no morning sickness, no like symptoms at all of pregnancy the whole entire time. And then I failed my glucose tolerance test, and so I tested positive for gestational diabetes. At that point, then I had to begin being a lot more strict about what I was eating every day. I was checking my sugars 4 times a day to really stay on top of it. And thankfully, I was able to control my sugars without any medication, just with diet and exercise. The suckiest part of my whole entire pregnancy started happening probably around November, so about 8 months pregnant. I was having like the worst sciatic nerve pain and also like round ligament pain, and it was just so hard working in a job where I was on my feet pretty much for 12 hours a day, you know, still doing everything that a nurse would do. It was kind of hard, and I could not wait to go out on maternity leave. But I worked up until 4 weeks before my due date. So I ended up going out on leave sometime in December. Sorry, I got an itch. So sometime in December, I went out on maternity leave and I started nesting. I got her room all prepared for her, and I started to mentally prepare for labor, or so I thought. But anyways, I started to prepare for everything and just get ready for the baby to come. That 4 weeks was like the longest 4 weeks of my life. Like Christmas and New Year's, I didn't even want to do anything. I was just over it. January came, and January 8th was my last doctor's office visit, and so I had started having contractions, or what I thought were contractions, on that morning, January 8th, and so I actually, like, I guess maybe I started, like, I started doing squats and lunges, and I was like, it is time. Like, I'm over this. Like, I want you out. Like, we got, like, let's speed this up. Let's do it, you know? So I was like doing lunges around the house, squats around the house, and I was like having contractions on and off. Nothing crazy, nothing, you know, nothing that I couldn't tolerate. I went to my doctor's appointment that evening, and he informed me that I was 1 centimeter. 1 centimeter, 50% effaced. And I was just like, oh God. So he knew that we lived about 40 minutes away from the hospital, and the doctor's office is pretty close to the hospital. So he was like, you know, just head over there, you know, head over to the hospital, let them, you know, put you on the monitor, see what's happening. Maybe something will pick up, and then at least you won't have to drive all the way home and drive all the way back, you know? So I was like, okay. I knew that they were going to send me home because even though I was having contractions, they were like 10 minutes apart. They weren't really, you know, causing me any like real discomfort. It was probably just my body like practicing. So we were there probably for about an hour, and then the nurse practitioner was just like, you know, just go home, maybe take a warm bath, you know, relax, you know, walk around, try to get the baby low. So I'm like, okay, a warm bath sounds nice. Let me do that, you know. So I get home, I get in the bathtub. Rudy falls asleep on the sofa. And I get in the bathtub, and I'm in the bathtub for about 30 minutes. The water was warm. It wasn't like hot tub hot or anything like that, but it was like warm water, warm bath water. It was relaxing. It was actually really soothing. And then I got out of the tub and, you know, threw on some sweatpants and a t-shirt and decided to lay on the love seat. I had been sleeping on the sofa or the love seat for the past like couple of weeks because it was so uncomfortable trying to lay in the bed. And then when I got comfortable, then I started having contractions. And let me tell you, like, what? So I'm like, at first I was excited because at first I'm like, ooh, these are real contractions. Like, this is really happening, you know? Like, at first I'm like, okay, like, this is it. Like, this is going to be it for real this time. And then, like, I'm timing them. And I'm just starting to be in more and more pain and more discomfort. And I was just like, this is not okay. Like, this is just not okay. I don't feel like we should have to go through this. It's just not fair. Like, there has to be a different way. There has to be a better way. So I was timing them. They were basically lasting about a minute. And they were coming like every 4 minutes tops. But I was in so much pain. Then they started, you know, getting a little closer together, and it had only been about an hour. But we called our doctor, and Rudy described to him like what I was feeling and that I was just in so much pain. And so he said, you know, we'll head back to the hospital, like go to the hospital. So we were like, okay. I called my mom, and my mom came over straight from work and she rode with us to the hospital. So I feel like in movies and things, like, you know, they always depict like pregnant women being like faster, faster, like get to the hospital now, like drive faster, speed up. Well, I was the complete opposite. I was like, slow down, because literally every turn, every bump, like just made me have another contraction, and I was just like, slow down, like this is uncomfortable. I was in so much pain. So we get all the way back to the hospital. My mom pushes me in the wheelchair, and I go back into OB triage, and they're probably looking at me like, weren't you just here like 2 hours ago? Like, no, go home, girl. So anyways, they put me on the monitor, and they see that I'm having contractions. But when the nurse practitioner checked me, I was still only 1 centimeter. Like, how, Sway? Like, how? So, 1 centimeter, like 95% effaced. And, you know, that's a big jump from 50% effaced to 95%. Effacement is actually and also a big indicator of, you know, labor progression. Some people don't really pay attention to effacement, but it matters, okay? Effacement matters too, okay? But basically, she was like, okay, you know, just walk around, you know, the lobby, swing your hips, get really low. So here I am in a hospital gown in the lobby, literally like waddling like a freaking duck, like just walking around, swinging my hips. And every single time I had a contraction, I like hopped up on a chair and was like swinging my butt back and forth. Like, I probably looked so crazy, but I did not care. I was having like extreme back labor. I would not wish that on anyone, like anyone at all. I literally don't remember feeling anything in the front. Like, no, I don't remember like uterine, like, you know, feeling like my stomach was tightening or anything like that. Every single ounce of pain that I felt was in my back. It literally felt like someone was like drilling my back, like every contraction. And it was just the way that my precious little girl was positioned inside of me, where like basically our bone was just, it was like bone against bone. It was just so painful. And now that I think about it, I'm like, I wonder if she was in pain. Like, I wonder if that hurt her, you know? Because it was hurting me. Like, it was bad. Oh my gosh. So after about an hour of that swinging my hips stuff that I was doing, I still wasn't any more dilated. And now I was in so much pain that I was throwing up. And like, I can tolerate pain. Like, I really can. Like, I was in so much pain that I was literally throwing up, and I didn't even really have anything in my stomach to throw up. So now I'm just like dry heaving, and it's just, I'm sorry. I don't mean to be too graphic, but it was a lot. And so the nurse comes back in, and she's like, you know, she put on her nurse voice. And like at this point, like they don't really know that I'm a nurse. So like she put on her nursing voice, and she was like, you know, at this point, we can just offer for you to go home. I nearly lost it. Go home and do what? Like, I was like, what? Like, do you see that I'm literally like about to die? Like, do you see that I'm like nearing death? Death is approaching. Like, that is literally how I felt. I was throwing up. I was not about to go home. So luckily I advocated for myself, because I'm like, no way, no how am I going home in this much pain. Like, no. So they called my doctor, and my doctor, instructed them to admit me. Go ahead, Dr. Grossman, tell them what to do. So he told them to admit me and let me do like a morphine rest. So, so they admitted me. They proceeded to stick me 6 times for an intravenous line, an IV. I literally was so close to just being like, can I just do it? Like, give me the needle, I've done plenty of these. Let me just do it to myself at this point. So anyways, they finally get the anesthesiologist to come put an IV in me. And they take me upstairs to a room on the high risk unit, not because I was high risk, but because they had a bed there and I technically couldn't go into labor and delivery yet. So they took me to the high risk unit and gave me this medication that was magical. And within like maybe a minute of this medication going through my IV, I was knocked out. Like, knocked out. Like, dead to the world. Like, it was amazing. And so we got up to that room probably around 3 o'clock. And then in the morning, 3 a.m. And around 7-ish, the medication started wearing off. And I started to wake up. And I started to feel contractions. And I was like, oh no. Mind you, I had it in my mind that I was going to have this baby natural. I wasn't going to have an epidural because my mom had, both my brother and myself with no epidural. And my mom and pain do not get along. So I was like, if she can do it, then so can I. Well, I was highly, highly, highly mistaken because no, I couldn't. So anyways, my nurse practitioner comes in the morning and she checks me and she's like, oh, well, good news is you're 4 centimeters. So we're going to admit you to labor and delivery. And then she was like, when you get over there, we're going to break your water. So do you want the epidural? And I was like, yes, I do, ma'am. Like, have the anesthesiologist there when I get there. Because I'm already starting to feel contractions at this point. And I was just like, I need to sleep again. Give me some more medication. So we head over to labor and delivery. It is now like 8 o'clock in the morning on January 9th. And we head over there. And I'm like breathing through these contractions. It is so uncomfortable. Women are amazing. Like we are freaking like warriors, okay? Like that pain, I guarantee you right now, if Rudy had to feel that pain, yeah, right. Okay? Yeah, right. We just wouldn't be having babies, okay, if it was the other way around. So, anyways, we get over there. I'm breathing through the pain. Finally, the anesthesiologist comes in and gives me the epidural. And I was able to go back to sleep. And then a few hours later, they checked me again. And I had progressed to like 5 centimeters. So we're like, okay, it's going to be pretty slow going, but that's okay. Then Selena started scaring me. I don't think anyone else was kind of as concerned as I was, but I guess, the hardest part, I think, about being a healthcare provider when you're the patient is, being an RN or just like working in healthcare or knowing like things about healthcare when you're the patient is that, you know what's going on. So it can be a blessing and it can be a curse. So I was laying on my left side, and the monitor where they were monitoring her heart rate and my contractions was, on that side. So I was able to like watch her heart rate. And I noticed that Selena was having late decelerations, which that just means that every time I was having a contraction, directly after the contraction, her heart rate would drop like pretty low. And so that can be like an indicator that she's not getting adequate oxygen. Which obviously was scaring me. My nurse was really good about keeping calm, cool, and collected, but I also knew that she also was not okay with how low Selena's heart rate was going. Every single time she stepped out of the room, she called my doctor. I guess, to inform him of the late decelerations. And, she was trying everything. We had me laying on my left side. We had a peanut ball between my legs. We obviously put oxygen on me to try to increase like oxygenation. And me, I'm like, give me a C-section. Let's go. Like, let's get her out. I want her, healthy. So let's just do it. But every single time my doctor came into the room, then she calmed down and her heart rate was fine and was having all this nice variability. And I was just like, okay, Dr. Grossman, like, pull up a chair because clearly my child wants you to be in here. Because when you leave, then her heart rate goes really low. And I was just like kind of like nervous about that. So this is when it got like, oh my gosh. So I've been laying now on my left side for quite some time. And if you don't know anything about the epidural, you should know that it is gravitational. And so most of the time, if you're laying on your back, like both sides will stay pretty numb. I was laying only on my left side, and so I started getting all the feeling back into the right side of my body, like my lower body. So I could feel the contractions and everything on my right side. It was like the weirdest sensation ever. And then out of nowhere, I just started feeling like, I guess it would be what's called like the ring of fire. But like, I was just like, can someone please get me some ice? Get me ice, get me a cold washcloth, get me something. Like, this hurts really bad. It literally, I guess the only way I can describe what I was feeling was like, it literally felt like someone was like holding a blowtorch to my crotch. Like, it literally felt like I was on fire. Like, it hurt so bad. And and I'm like, screaming for someone to get me some ice or someone, and no one's moving. And I'm just like, what the heck? Like, what is going on? And my nurse practitioner, Laura, my midwife, she was like, I don't think ice is going to help. I don't think that's the kind of pain you're feeling. And I'm like, well, no one's doing anything about it, so let's figure it out. And so she checks me. She's like, I'm going to check you again. So she checks me and she's like, oh, only anterior lip left. And I'm like, all right, like, can we speak English? Like, what does that even mean? And so my nurse was like, oh, it's time to push. And I was like, what? Like, it's so crazy how, like, the whole time, like, that's what you want to hear. You want to hear, like, it's time to push, it's time to push. And then when they finally say that, you're like, okay, hold on. Like, slow down. Like, we got here too fast. That's literally how I felt. But I was like, okay, I'm ready for this. So they started getting the bed ready and prepping the room for, for me to start pushing. And I was, like, so excited. And then we get ready to push. My doctor's like, oh, we're going to do some practice pushes. So I'm like, okay, we can do this. She's explaining to me how to push. So we do some practice pushes. And next thing you know, she's like, oh, she has hair. And I'm like, what? I like look at Rudy and I'm like, you can see her? Like, what? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, I thought I was just practicing. Like, so they told me to stop pushing at one point. My midwife realized that the cord was wrapped around her neck. And so she real quick cut the cord. That explained the late decelerations. And then we kept pushing. I literally pushed for 10 minutes, which was great. I pushed for 10 minutes. I had like a minimal tearing. So that was amazing for like a first time labor experience. But Selena came out and she was... she scored pretty low for her first APGAR score, which is a score that they give babies based off of like color and tone and, other different things. She was gray. She didn't make any noise. She was kind of like limp. And so they took her over to the other table and started drying her off, I guess trying to stimulate her, suctioning her nose and her mouth. They had a NICU doctor there just because they were concerned that she had swallowed meconium. And waiting to hear her make a noise was probably... it was literally like time stood still. It was literally like... it was scary. And then finally she made a little whimper noise and it was like all the breath came back into my lungs and I was just like, I couldn't wait to hold her. I couldn't wait to meet her. And oh my God, I'm going to get emotional. But yeah, so they put her on my chest and it was literally like just love at first sight is a real thing, I love her. So anyways, hold on. Okay, I had to get myself together real quick. But so yeah, so after she was born, we went over to the mother baby unit. We were like so in love and we just couldn't stop looking at her, and we spent like 2 days there. So she was born January 9th at like 8:49 p.m. She weighed 6 pounds 9 ounces. She was 20 and a half inches long, little skinny long thing. And yeah, we were just so like ecstatic. We ended up getting discharged from the hospital on my birthday, January 11th, and we came home. And yeah, that's my pregnancy, birth story, everything. Make sure y'all like this video and stay tuned for something that I'm just gonna, a little special treat that I have, just gonna drop sometime this week. But yeah, make sure you like and subscribe. Stacy with 2 E's, don't forget it.
Real one, keep it 1 million. Yeah, I'm on it by locked up on the pen, we just